Okay, welcome to the A1 podcast. I have special guest acting City Prosecutor Dwight Nadamoto. How's it going, Mr. Nadamoto?
It's going good.
Very good. This podcast is a special to talk about the COVID-19 virus and its effects on the judiciary. My first question for you is super controversial: the emergency release of inmates from in custody. Hawaii has about 800 or so that have been released. Through this process, what in your opinion has been some of the things that have been done well, and what were the things that you'd like to point out that were not done well when it comes to the emergency releases?
What has been done well is prisoners have been released. I believe close to or about 500 have been released. And whether it has been done well, or it's been a good thing, we'll have to wait and see. But as to what needs to be fixed, as I said, I think everything was looked at the front end, getting them loose. Nothing was looked at as to making sure the public is safe once they're loose, make sure that that they can come back in time to finish their sentence. As I said, when this thing started, we wanted three things. We wanted, number one, that they be screened to be negative for the COVID-19 virus, and that could be done either one of two ways: quarantine in OCCC or quarantine at a verified residence. The second thing we wanted was a verified residence, someplace they could go, someplace where they would not have to sleep on the streets or in fact violate the governor's proclamation, someplace they would have food and be welcome. And the third thing we wanted was that they be given a time certain to return to finish their sentence. And the number two one, the verified residence, is very important because, they have a place to stay. They're not going to have to steal. They're not going to have to rob. They're not going to have to trespass in order to stay alive. And number two, also, when they have to go back to their finish off their sentence, we can be relatively assured, if their sponsor, was on the up and up, that they don't have the virus coming back, that they weren't out wandering around the streets, that they had a place to go. So when they come back, they're free of the virus. I mean, it would be very ironic if they picked up the virus while wandering around the streets, and they are the ones who brought it back into the prison.
Yeah, and I think that's very important that you point that out. As of today, it's Thursday the 14th, May 14th, there are 0 actual confirmed cases within custody. And it's important to make sure that it continues to be that way. And that actually leads to my next question. Given that there aren't any positive tests in custody just yet, do you think the emergency releases have been justified?
No. But I guess time will tell later on. Because, they've been released, and and there's been nothing in the prison. So I would say just looking at it like that, it has been justified. And number two is that there's COVID outside, so, we don't know if they picked it out outside since they have no verified residence.
Yeah, testing is going to be super important moving forward, because you don't want people who recently got released from, a COVID-free zone to be out in the world and then maybe catch it because they don't have shelter, and then maybe get rearrested and then go right back in and infect the rest of the facility. Do we have any numbers? I know it's early, but do we have any numbers on the amount of people that have been released and then rearrested?
See, that's another thing. Number three, whether it's been worthwhile or whatever, that's another thing that has to wait because, if everybody who released didn't commit any more crimes, came back and finished out their sentence, that's fine. But we know that's not true, because there have been people released who have recommitted crimes. So that's one reason why, or I should say, have been arrested for other crimes. So based upon that, no COVID inside the prison, I would say, it wasn't warranted. And yes, there are, we don't really know how many people have violated. We have maybe filed maybe close to 40 motions to revoke the release, but that's only the motions we filed. I mean, in other instances, the judge would have just issued a bench warrant. So there's probably more out there.
Yeah, that's going to be really important to focus on, because you want to make sure that, just so that we could learn, just in case there's another unforeseen event and you have to have a release of some sort, there's a huge learning opportunity to make sure that, you know, whatever was done and could have been improved upon, the next time something crazy like this happens, because there's always something, right? We can go ahead and, as the public, be safe, and the judiciary can go ahead and release people in a, you know, a modified, better fashion.
Yes, and as I said, you know, a week ago, government agencies have contacted me about providing services to those inmates who were released, and you know, we cannot communicate with those inmates, and it's, as I said, interesting that this is called an emergency humanitarian release. When they're just being released, nothing is given or thought about as to where they're going to stay, what they're going to eat. They weren't given, you know, go contact this shelter, et cetera, et cetera. So, in effect, you know, it's kind of like they're set up to fail. I mean, when you don't take care of everything, this is what's going to happen. I mean, if you give them a place to shelter, at least we know that they're not, you know, hopefully not violating the governor's stay-at-home order. But when you release them to wherever they are, I mean, who knows what they're going to do, and who knows what virus they may or not be picking up.
Yeah, and for our listeners, I just want to point out that today the city and county basically extended the stay-at-home / work-at-home order all the way through to June 30th. They're calling this phase of it I forgot what it was, it's like Reopen Honolulu or Hawaii 2.0. They got some catchy phrase for it, but we're still basically on a lockdown, and they're gradually opening up certain sectors of the economy. I announced this interview, which I'm very happy that you accepted my invitation to be on the podcast, but I announced this on Stolen Stuff Hawaii, and we got a lot of Stolen Stuff Hawaii questions. So the first Stolen Stuff Hawaii question is, what made news was a guy named Mark Lyons. He's one of those guys who's always getting arrested. He has over 300 arrests. Particular to COVID-19, he got on a bus, didn't want to wear the protective face mask, used his crutches to like assault the poor bus driver, hit him in the face, and then bang the door as he got out. And there's a lot of concern about people who are continually being arrested and then somehow being released. So my question is to you, how do you stop that cycle of problematic people always getting in trouble and getting arrested, and then released, and then arrested, and then released, and so on?
Well, you know, I don't know. Okay, so one thing, I guess he was probably arrested for a violation of the governor's order. That's probably what it was, or a mistake.
Oh, they filed new charges on him because he hit the poor bus driver. So it was like interfering with a transit operator and then criminal property damage. That was like what I read online.
Okay, so I guess it kind of depends on if those, you know, like if they're misdemeanors, what usually happens is the bail is set, and the police will set the bail upon arrest, and he could make bail, and then he'd be released. I guess that would be the problem. And if it's like a felony, I'm not quite sure what that charge is, then we would have to go to, you know, information and complaint, because there's no grand jury now, or would have to go to what is called preliminary hearing. And so I would think that the charge was not a felony, or you know, because of this COVID thing, you know, we're you know, trying not to, the courts or the prisons are not wanting to get a lot of people. But in this case, if he's deemed a danger, I would say, yeah, you know, we'll arrest him and we'll charge him. But then bail will be set, as you know, and we'll probably get another one of these hearings. And, you know, we filed close to 500 motions, you know, objecting to these releases. And, you know, we lose just about every one.
Wow. Yeah, crazy. There definitely needs to be like an intermediary, people who are charged with, upon release, getting like inmates or newly released inmates like dialed in with like maybe IHS, maybe making sure that they could get fast tracked for like food stamps, just really basic stuff. But that seems to be kind of like a blind spot in the system. Do you know of any like services that maybe the public defender added on top of, or maybe they do themselves to make sure that people get more dialed in and, you know?
They can contact the shelters, IHS. I mean, you know that. But that's not their concern. Their concern is just getting them out. They're not concerned about where they're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, apparently.
Yeah.
Because there's people. There was one person who was who had beat a 74-year-old man with a golf club. Hit him so hard he broke the golf club. Okay. Mm-hmm. He got released during COVID.
Yeah, that's another really frustrating thing, and it's mentioned all the time in the articles that I read in California as well as New York. The point of the release was to release the non-violent offenders that were likely to return to court. Yet, no matter what, there always seems to be clearly, obviously, like violent people who get released. I have no idea how that keeps happening.
Well, I mean, the judges have the discretion. I mean, you can easily say, this guy hit somebody with a golf club. He's clearly violent. Okay, you can say this person is accused of assault. He's violent. But the thing is, we just want to release the non-violent people. Well, first of all, violent people are being released, and second of all, who's nonviolent? We don't know who's nonviolent. Mm-hmm. That's not an easy thing to say. I mean, was it last week, 2 weeks ago, the guy got picked up for criminal property damage in the 4th degree and a harassment? Mm-hmm. He got arrested. His bail was set at, I believe, $500. Wow. Within an hour, he was ROR'd. A couple of days later, he stabbed somebody. Now he's charged with murder. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not an easy thing to say who's non-violent. I mean, violent, you can say this person is violent because of his past, but who's non-violent? He has a drug problem. That could cause him to be violent, if he doesn't get his drugs. And they look at it and you only have like a, shoplifting or a, UCPV, and he's not violent, but that's not an easy thing. And to say, these people who have these type of offenses, they're presumed to be nonviolent. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely something to think about, because we have what's traditionally defined as violent. However, that still doesn't mean that somebody's not capable later of committing a violent act. There is a huge dilemma when it comes to how we define it, and then there's really no way to predict moving forward what could happen. So that's a huge problem. That's absolutely a huge problem. So another stolen stuff Hawaii question, which got a lot of attention. Basically, there's a lot of like break-ins into cars, and the charge UCPV. A lot of times, and I don't know this to be true, but this is just the sentiment of the people on the community. A lot of people have tried to make reports. Maybe they have video footage of somebody breaking into their cars, but then the person who gets sort of like arrested for that, they say, oh wait, I thought I had permission, and they call it the good faith defense. And it's the perception on the community that a lot of times that, because they say that, now the prosecutor's office doesn't actually charge people because they can't get a conviction in court. So I'd like you to add some color onto that process. And is it true? Does the prosecutor's office not prosecute some cases because of this good faith defense problem?
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you want to call it. I mean, because of the statute, it says intentionally or knowingly, right? So they have to know intentionally or knowingly that they don't have, authorization to drive the vehicle. So, I believe it was like HPD, which we were supporting, this legislature. We were trying to get a bill passed, which would make a UCPV 2 instead, also, I should say, wherein the state of mind would just have to be reckless. So that would have allowed us to, charge a lot more cases. Mm-hmm. But, the ledge is off right now, so we don't know what's going to happen with that.
Oh, wow. So that's something that could happen, a new modification, a new charge, so that people could...
Like a UCPV 2 instead of, a second degree instead of a first degree.
Uh-huh. Oh, would it be a misdemeanor?
Yeah, I think it would be a misdemeanor. But, we could also fine-tune it, and, maybe if this person has 2 of those, we could try and bump it up to, charge him with a felony. I mean, because, when we charge a case, we have to believe that we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was like, I saw the community, and I saw, because, sometimes online you don't know what you can believe, what you can't believe, but so it's true. People could just kind of BS their way and say, hey, I thought I had permission, and then that could sometimes help them not get charged.
Upon a lot of things, like if the key is punched, of course we would charge it. If the guy is seen breaking into it, we can charge it. We would charge it. And maybe if he's caught driving it soon after it was stolen, we can charge it. But if it's like a day later and the car's perfectly fine, the guy's driving it, sometimes it is hard to charge, and that's why we're trying to get supporting other bills so we could charge those cases.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. I support the modification so that, nobody wants to constantly be living in fear of being broken into in their home, or, fearing that if they leave their car out on the street, or even if it's kind of in their driveway, that someone's just going to go case them up, break their glass, they got to file an insurance claim, and then they don't have access to their car for a few weeks as they repair the window, because that's happened to me as well.
Yeah, if we think we can prove the case, we'll charge it. Mm-hmm. But the problem is what I told you. The car is perfectly fine. If the guy somehow got the keys and is driving it around, those cases are hard to charge.
Wow, crazy. Next question for you. Another kind of big issue online is a lot of people feel as though, they're honest, everyday people, and, they want to go work out. They want to go be in the park. They want to go to the beach. We all know we're supposed to be sheltering, but the laws are kind of fuzzy as to, you could be out, but you have to be actively fishing or in the water. If you're on the beach, you can't cruise on the beach too long. They'll say you're not sheltering in place. And then there's that being contrasted with the release of inmates. You know what I mean? So for people online, they see, wait a minute, I'm a law-abiding citizen, and now I'm having to deal with possible arrest or citation, and then we have people being released who were arrested, who are pending trial,
or were convicted,
or were convicted. So because of what has happened lately, you see a lot of videos with people being really argumentative, and there's kind of protests, there's civil unrest. How do you, as city prosecutor, deal with what's happening on the public safety side for COVID versus what's happening also with the releases? It's a crazy dynamic. What are your thoughts on that?
We opposed those releases. As I told you, we wanted anybody's going to release. We wanted case by case, negative for the virus, verified residents, and date certain to return. That's what we wanted. We didn't get it, of course. I guess one of the things we might have to start looking at, and I don't know if it can be done, is letting the police know who was let loose due to COVID. So if they happen to cite them for a not sheltering thing, that we can move to set aside their release. Yeah. As to the citizens, the governor's proclamation is what it is. If they're exercising, if they're walking, they should be fine.
Okay, so Last question for you. This was a COVID-19 special, but I did want to kind of lead into just the general election because we have a varied field. Some would say we have an activist candidate, we have a public defender candidate, we have two highly competent private attorneys running, and we have another criminal defense attorney. With so many different options, what differentiates you, and why should people vote for you for city prosecutor?
Well, that's all I've been, 30 years I've been a prosecutor. I've done all kinds of cases. I've done white-collar cases. I've done murder cases, police corruption, organized crime. I've done trials, and I've done, I appeared before the Supreme Court, white Supreme Court, argued cases. I'm not a defense attorney who wants to become a prosecutor. I'm not somebody who has supported laws which have made violent repeat drug offenders eligible for probation. I have always been for and thought of put first public safety. I've done that for over 30 years, and I don't think anybody else can say that.
Very good. Thank you very much for participating in the podcast. Stay safe, and if people want to find out more about your campaign, where could they go?
Nadamoto for prosecutor.com.
There we go. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, cool.